Today's lesson is over Chapter 10, Section 1, and it's about adding and subtracting polynomials. So the objective is obviously to add and subtract polynomials. But before you do that, you need to know what makes up a polynomial. A monomial, mono means single or one, so it's just a single term. It's a group of numbers and or variables tied together by multiplication or division, and they're separated by addition and subtraction. And here are some examples of monomials. And a coefficient is just the number before the variable. So in this case, your number is -5, 3, 4/3, and -5/2. Those are your coefficients. When adding and subtracting polynomials, it's important to know like and unlike terms. Your like terms have the same variable. So here, these are like terms because they both have an x. It doesn't matter what their coefficients are, it matters what the variable is. So they're like terms because they're both x's. These are unlike because this is an x and this is a y. The variables are different. This one's the same because they're both m squareds. This one's different because you have an x, but you don't have any variables here. And here, even though the variables are in different orders, they have the same variable, so these are still like terms because they both have an x and a y. This one has an x and a y, and this one only has a y, no x, so these are unlike. And it doesn't matter what the sign is, they can still be like terms if they have the same variable. So these are both a, so even though this one's negative, they're still like terms. This is just like saying -1, so their coefficients are just different. These are unlike because although they're both x's, this one is an x squared and this one's just an x. And in this one, they're in different orders, but they're still like terms because this is x squared and y, and this is x squared and y, so they are like terms. And these are not like terms because this is x squared y and this is y squared x, so they're different. So earlier we learned what a monomial is, but this is a polynomial. A polynomial, poly means many, is a variable expression consisting of many terms that can't be combined. And here are some examples. 5x minus 4. There aren't any like terms, they can't be combined. Same as 2y cubed minus 3y plus 8. There's no like terms, so they can't be combined. But they're together because you're adding and subtracting here. Same with this one, it's a polynomial, 7 and 4 minus 3a squared plus 4 minus 6. Now binomial, bi means two, so it's just a two-term polynomial. There's a term and there's a term, and they're combined by either a subtraction or addition sign. They're separated by either a subtraction or addition sign. Same with this, there's two terms, so it's a binomial, two terms. Tri means three, so these are three-term polynomials. 1, 2, 3 terms. 1 term, 2 term, 3 term. So to add, you simply add your like terms. So you have an a plus a 3a, which will give you a 4a. You have a 2 plus a -9, which gives you -7, and that's your answer. Here you do the same thing. You find your like terms and you add or subtract your like terms. So you have an x squared and you have a 7x squared, and we're adding. So you add x squared plus 7x squared, you get 8x squared. And here you have a -x plus a negative, well, you have to notice here you don't have an x term. So you just have a -x plus 0, so you keep your -x. And here you have a constant, but you don't have a constant here. So it's like 0 plus a -5, so you keep your -5. And in this one, you find your like term, so you have y squared, so you do 4y squared plus a -y squared, which gives you 3y squared. And you have a y squared here and a y squared here, so you take your -3y squared plus your 8y squared, and that gives you 5y. And you still have a constant, but you don't have a constant here, so it's just like 0 plus 7, so you have 7, and that's your answer. And here you just subtract polynomials. It's the same thing, but a lot of people, you have to remember to distribute that negative to both of these terms, because what this means is you're subtracting this whole thing. So you have to first distribute, like what they do here. You keep your 8x squared minus 5, but you have to distribute this so it becomes negative 2x squared and negative 4. And when you combine like terms, you get 6x squared minus 9. Same thing, even though this is a try and this is a binomial, here you just you distribute your negative first, so you keep everything you have here in these parentheses, and you distribute your negative. So you have negative 4k squared, a minus a negative 2 becomes a plus 2k, and then you combine your like terms, your negative 6k squared and your negative 4k squared to get negative 10k squared, and your negative 3k and your 2k to get negative k, and your 1's by itself, so you keep your 1. And here you distribute again, and you keep what you have in these parentheses, and you distribute, and this becomes negative 2t squared, and this becomes negative 5t, and this becomes a positive 6. And then you combine, and you get 8 minus 2 is 6t squared. You don't have another t, so you keep your negative 5t, and then you do 7 plus 6 is 13, and that's your answer there. And lastly, we have the same thing going on, subtracting the polynomials. You distribute here, you keep what you have here, and then you just combine your like terms. You take your 7x squared, your negative 7x squared, and your negative 4x squared, and it gives you negative 11. You take your negative 3x and your negative 7x, and it gives you negative 10x. You take your negative 2 plus your 5, and you get 3. And then lastly, you distribute here. You keep your 4t minus 7. You distribute, becomes 2t squared, negative 3t, negative 10. And you always want to put it where your highest exponent comes first. So here you have your t squared, so you put your 2t squared here. You combine your t's, 4 minus 3 becomes just 1, so you just put t. You have your negative 7 minus 10 becomes negative 17. And that's your answer.